So I've got the meta harness router, which is doesn't need to be trained, which is a little
Right.
easier to use. Yeah, I guess
Rube, that'd
it can
be a
make
pretty
people.
amazing thing to understand. A lot of the folks are saying they understand conceptually that you can flip back and forth between the models. I think other people are doing it manually. It'd be great for you to demo what that setup looks like so that folks would figure out how to do it if that's something you're open to doing, because that's the chatter I keep hearing people asking me about.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
Uh, what's our so I'm at
Well,
my lake house here on Lake Huron, which was pretty epic yesterday. I there was a water spout off the coast that was I don't even know 10 or 20 kilometers wide. It was like straight out of like one of those disaster films you see when global warming destroys the planet. But
it looked terrifying.
yeah, it didn't hit the land, I guess, and sucked up all the water out of the lake and dropped it off on the rest of the province, probably in New
We
York.
got some.
Yeah, it was quite the scene to behold. That's for sure. Um, so I guess they're saying that that's because of some sort of warm patch in the Pacific Ocean that messes with all the weather over here. Who knew? But
Mhm.
yeah, nice and hot. It's currently 90 degrees or 30 something Celsius here, which is unusual for a lake. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was blistering up here yesterday as well. We only went out during the day for a couple hours, then scuttled back into the AC.
Oh, I don't have any AC at my lake house. Usually there's a lake breeze and you don't need it. So it's like the 3 days a year you need air conditioning. I'll just suffer,
Right.
you know. And the rest of the half the year it's like, polar tundra anyway. It's like enjoy it while you can. Um, so yeah, again, pretty casual for me today. I'm here at the lake, and hopefully the internet holds up. I just had a whole bunch of people that showed up. Hopefully they don't all decide to go use Netflix at the same time. If I do break up, just give me some kind of indicator. But I guess the real question or story here is probably Fable. And I'm curious what, actually before we jump, as any first thoughts from anyone else who's tried it over the last day or so? Any, or less than a day, it's probably been 24 hours. Any any comments or feedback? Any discoveries?
Yeah, I was just
No?
telling Rob a couple of minutes ago that I didn't get a chance to use it the first time around because I was still on holiday and I blinked and it was over. But this time I'm feeling that it's not only a planner and executor, it's almost a product owner. It keeps up the conversation about the sense of the product and what the strategy is. It just I don't like the phrase it's on another level, but that's exactly the feeling I have that it's on another level compared to Opus.
It is on. I would agree. For certain things, it appears to be on another level. Hard, complex problems that both Opus and Sonnet and the GPT models couldn't solve in the SWE bench. There was about 50, 25 to 50 problems in SWE bench that essentially no model could solve. And the reason why you were seeing a lot of these SWE benches sort of maxing out around 75% is those 50 or so problems there that were basically according to most people were unsolvable, right? And they basically said, well, we're never going to be able to solve these problems. These are problems that are for whatever reason, things that just couldn't be solved. But in the scenario what I did last night with Fable, I was able to solve 24 of the 25 hardest problems. So that in itself is should speak to its ability to solve hard, complicated things. Now, I did that through the Dash P harness that I built. So there's different harnesses you can use, right? You can use your own, you can use Hermes or OpenClaw or whatever. Most of those harnesses kind of suck, right? They're no so the biggest difference that I'm seeing in any of these systems, is the harness itself. And a solid, language model obviously helps quite a bit. So here's my initial sort of tests. Now I can show you guys how I actually built this as well. Um, All right, so this is my performance capabilities and cost analysis. This ran for since this came out yesterday afternoon, Eastern time. So give or take for the last 24 hours, this has been running. Now, keep in mind, I'm not using um, the usage component from Claude Code. This is actually paying for the actual expensive model. Benefits of having some venture or some investor backing. I can buy the credits and do the benchmarking without worrying so much about the cost. So in this case, what I did is I used Fable 5 against essentially. What I didn't do is the 300 benchmark. It's just too expensive. I'm not going to spend you know $1,500 repeatedly just to know that a good model is good. I could already tell you that. So what I did I took a representative sort of slice of SWE bench and said, first give me what, a normal sort of, combination of easy, medium, and hard questions look like, and then give me 25 of those. A 25 unit test takes about an hour, maybe 2 hours to run, where a 300 unit test could take 6 to 7 hours to run. So it was a more cost efficient and time efficient approach. So in this particular scenario, what it told me is Fable is the best hardtail code repair actual we measured. Now, keep in mind, I've measured all the biggest models at this point, over the last couple weeks. And that includes GLM and DeepSeek and the new DeepSeek that just came out, and a whole variety of other sort of code orientated models and so on. And of all the ones I've modeled and benchmarked, this one is by far the best. Now, the gold scored SWE slices, Fable 5 inside the Claude-P loop, resolved 21 out of 25 representative tasks and 23 of 25 hardtail tasks. So keep in mind what that means is in the scenario that I described, it was able to do 23 of the 25 hardest tests that I could find within SWE bench, not just measured by me, but measured by anyone that's doing SWE bench. Previous to that, I was getting like a couple we can go down here and look at exact numbers, but it was substantially less. So the lesson here is not run Fable everywhere. The lesson is escalate to Fable when the cheaper loop cannot close. Sonnet remains the economic anchor for ordinary repair work. Fable is the top rung for the remainder. So multi-file, deep context, long horizon fixes where cheaper models waste turns or produce empty patches. So what I'm doing is you can think of it as an escalator, a stepped escalator. I start with a cheap model. Right now it's GPL 5.2, which is substantially cheaper. Then if it fails after a couple tries on a given problem, and remember these are complex coding related problems, then I escalate to Sonnet. Sonnet can fix significant portion of the things that GPL, GLP, GLM, too many acronyms to remember, GLM fails on, and then if Sonnet fails, then I escalate to the Fable model. Now, that escalation model means that I'm able to save, in this case, from a practical frontier, there's Sonnet to Fable with an optional cheap first pass in this front. This turns Fable from a kind of blanket cost center into a targeted hardtail solver. In our pilot, Sonnet to Fable improved resolution from 84 to 88 with mixed escalation while reducing the cost by 22%. This is the most important part. Now, we can probably get even better than 22. Keep in mind, I've only been doing this for a day. So a lot of the numbers you're seeing are kind of raw, and I haven't really fully optimized the harness for it yet. But the feedback here is somewhere in the realm of 20 to 30%. I'm able to reduce the overall cost while increasing the overall capability by mixing a variety of different models together in that escalation sort of approach. So according to this, the bottom line is not just a better model, it's a better model when paired with a loop capable of expressing its solutions. The product opportunities is the router, which is what Stu mentioned earlier, the harness and the escalation policy, model quality. The right loop is multiplicative, which I love that word. And keep in mind, I'm running Fable in the Claude-P harness. So essentially, I'm taking my prompts and I'm giving it to it, using the dash P with the prompt and so on, and different reasoning efforts applied to it. So best raw quality, 84 and 84 representative, 92 hardtail. This is amazing. Like this is the highest we've ever seen by not just a little, but a lot. So with basically no real effort, other than the sort of raw Claude dash P, I'm able to get essentially the highest marks ever seen. Now, some people are bragging about 90% and stuff like that. Those are really, really targeted harnesses or benchmark harnesses that are being developed. So what I didn't want to create yet another benchmark that just looks at the solving the problem for a particular benchmark and then failing on everything outside of that benchmark. So what I want to do is say, okay, based on just general, what does it look like out of the box without any real modification whatsoever? So there's no fancy roof flow prompts or memory or anything like that. This is just basically taking a prompt and running it through the SWE bench. Sorry, taking a problem and running it through the SWE bench. So some more things we can look at here. Let me pause for a moment. Is what I'm saying making sense? Or am I? All right. So and actually, Rob, how's my internet connection holding up here?
Yeah, you're coming through great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So performance, gold scored, SWE bench light. You can see the numbers again. These are pretty good numbers. Hardest slice. These are 25 hardest. You can see that what's interesting here is that the Claude, what they seem to have done. Just this is, and it's probably I think they're training their models specifically to work with Claude code or Anthropic related harnesses and tools and the work capabilities that they're seeing in their different desktop tools are now been automated or trained specifically for their tools. So when you try to use the Claude code, for example, using DeepSeek, it completely fails. Like no, and I was able to get around that actually by doing a few tricks. But these are the raw numbers. This is basically I'm just going to take DeepSeek V Pro V4 stuff and then change the API endpoint and see what happens with Claude. Well, it doesn't do anything. It just basically doesn't work. Sonnet, this also struggled. Remember, these are the hardest problems. So Sonnet does work really well with Claude Code, as you know, as anyone that's ever switched to Sonnet in Claude Code will tell you, it works just fine. But it still doesn't solve the hardest problems. It solved 1 out of 25. In Sonnet, the previous version of Sonnet, it was 0. So interesting to see that it at least in for complex hard problems, it definitely seems to work better. The loop dependency, why 92 is not Fable alone. So again, Fable alone, this is Claude-P, Fable 92 on the hard. And then these other numbers are probably more interesting. We don't need 92% on most things. Let's be honest. Like you don't need the world's smartest engineer for the most applications. You might need it to build the application, but when you have, let's say the intelligence you want to put into a chat system or analysis or other tools, you don't need it. So what I'm looking at is what's the best price point I can get for at the least amount of money. And the combination in that is still a stepped approach that basically says you can use the GLM, you can then use Sonnet, and maybe if you're willing, you can sort of then put it to Fable. But if you skip Fable altogether, you can get the price point down to literally fractions of a penny, and that kind of stepped approach. So the meta harness allows you to define that kind of routed stepped approach. What else we got here? Cost. It's expensive, very expensive. So we've got I'm using Open Router. I might switch to Requesty. I like those guys. So, but I had it handy, so I used Open Router for this scenario. So this is the list price. You can see it's substantially more expensive than everything else. And this is just a comparison to other Anthropic models. The measure cost per task, because this is how much it costs me to do the various instances. And remember, an instance in this particular scenario is in a 25 instance test. These are 25 different problems, right? So this is both measuring the percent resolved and the cost. Now, what's interesting, by far, if you're, I'm only in this part looking at the sort of stepped or escalation of anthropic related models because I was using Claude-P. Sonnet 5 wins for sure. It's cost efficient and effective for most things. 72 is it resolved for an SWE is spectacular. This means this would have been state of the art like a month ago. So this would have been better than Opus a month ago. So Sonnet 5 is definitely the way to go for most of the applications. Someone say something? Ofer, what's
No,
up?
yeah.
I saw an interesting paper, maybe gonna help you. I sent it in the chat. I think it came from Microsoft, and they have a website to show what it does. The promise there is that you do not need to run every eval, but because once you run a few of them, they have a predictor that would say how well would it do in different things.
That's
They
what I'm
made a
doing.
website.
Hmm.
That's a project
That's
page. It
exact.
can help you.
So that was the move away from the Tiny Dancer, which required me to train a model, learn, and then use that as a fast GRNN. And the move I did was I moved away from this idea that you needed to run in an eval every time, but I could sort of use again, a combination of smaller, incremental, more targeted versions of evals and then learn based on that. And then once I had that in place, I could just use a router to do it. Um, let's just jump around for a moment. I'm going to pop that into my system. So another screen here. I've got I'm doing my Fable related benchmarking. So this is what I do here, DeepSeek. So right now I'm just comparing different models and trying to figure out exactly what it is. So I'm just going to get it to review the following for integration into the meta harness system. And so step one, I'm just going to oops, I didn't copy the link. Oh, why isn't it not copying? There we go. That worked. Third time's a charm. All right, so I'm doing that. I'm running. Oh, it keeps jumping back down to Opus. That's the problem I keep having here. Looks like it's running Opus at the moment. But in this particular harness that I'm using, I'm actually using my meta harness under the covers. So for all the tests that I'm actually using, I'm using the Claude-P directly to invoke the Fable model. And for that, if it fails for whatever reason to use Fable, like it says like you've been restricted or whatever the 529 error is or whatever, it'll then retry it. And it won't just let it fall back to 4.8, which basically forces the system to be a little bit more intelligent. Let's see if I can force this back to Fable. I guess I'm in the middle of doing. I'm gonna let this run for a minute. Let's jump back for. I'll let this percolate. But that's a good find, Ofer. Looks really good. I haven't read this one, but it looks like we're all kind of converging on similar kind of escalation and fusion routing strategies. The Open Router guys call theirs fusion. The Devlin, I think whatever they call themselves, they came out with one last week. Theirs is a hybrid fusion model as well. The Japanese guys, I'm not even going to try to pronounce whatever their name was. They're also doing a fusion style model. So this seems to be where we're all kind of heading in terms of the idea. In essence, this fusion model is a variant on the Tiny Dancer concept from last year. It's basically train a model to understand the nuances of what hard and complex means, learn the optimal strategies for the task at hand, and then have the system automatically choose the right model without you having to switch back and forth between them. Now, the way that I've done it, this isn't something I published as part of Meta Harness, but the way that I'm doing it for like my own tools for the company is I'm using that in the form of a completions API. So it looks either like a Chat GPT style completions API or the Anthropic style, which has different sort of characteristics. And then I just basically define the harness in which you're trying to interact with, and then it auto sort of makes the response look like a normal LLM. But what's happening under the covers is it's rewriting the response or the request to match the particulars of the model in which I'm using at that point in the escalation. So if I'm using DeepSeek in an early stage, I'm going to rewrite and redefine how that request gets made and the response to that as those requests come back. Now I can do that in two particular modes. I can do that. I got a response here too. But I can do that in form of a static request, or I can do that in real-time streaming. So you guys might remember the midstream tool that we created last year. That allows me to basically do that introspection of in a real-time stream. So the beginning of the stream, I might have GLM. As the stream progresses, the system might decide that this problem is too hard or it requires a little more brain power. I can then on the fly jump between the cheaper open source models to a more expensive model like Sonnet or Fable on the fly without ever breaking the stream, which also reduces the cost, but also gives the appearance of a kind of meta LLM, an LLM that's made up of not just only a mixture of experts, but a mixture of models. And as you make the request, the models can change in real time. Now, in that scenario, I'm not sure who's doing that. I'm sure someone somewhere is, but it seems to work pretty well. All right, so the full paper here says you don't need to run every eval, bench press, so on. Core findings, an 84 model, 133 benchmark public matrix is effectively ranked 2. Model score, okay, 2 numbers. The numbers that matter predict any missing model benchmark. Five probe benchmarks recover models whole scorecard. Preserve 92% of pairwise model rankings, where it fits in the meta harness. That's what we want to know. Strong fit. Model onboarding. This is the real integration. Every time a new model lands on Open Router, this session alone, GLM 5.2, DeepSeek, and so on, we currently decide its tier by running a full expensive slice. We burned $70 this session doing exactly that. Okay, I think Oprah, you just saved me $70. Bench press says run 5 code relevant probes, predict the full scorecard, place it in the low, mid, high at a fraction of the cost. All right. All right. So what I'm gonna do quickly, I'm gonna just switch back to the other model and see if I can force this. So I'm gonna go here and I think it's Fable. I don't know. I'll just look at it. All right. So let's and the worst part about this switch that Claude does, by the way, is I've already changed it to Fable several times today. It doesn't just fall back; it forces the damn thing during the session. Then you have to go and manually set it back, which is annoying. All right, create a detailed ADR for the implementation. What the heck are we calling this thing? The implementation of you don't need to run it in every eval. All right. As part of the meta harness system. And I'm gonna give it a little extra. Actually, let's try the ultra think on this one. I haven't tried ultra think on Fable yet. Let's see what that does. There's a high likelihood right now, I'm going to tell you straight up, it's going to fall back. It does not like distillation of their model. It's particularly, at least direct distillation of their models. So, and I get why they don't want that. They don't want, Chinese models basically taking their stuff and making their models smarter with it, which is going to happen anyway. Just, how do you even know that what something's a distillation if you position it differently? All right, so that's going to run for a bit, but the honest value, it won't reduce route requests, but it turns our expensive per model benchmarking into a 5 probe prediction with a trust flag. So what that means is what I can do is I can train the sort of optimal path for the meta harness. And so because whenever you're picking and choosing, there's this kind of training phase you have to do. So let's say I'm using the meta harness to like integrate, I don't know, some random industrial control system. Now, as part of that process, I have to train the system to understand where and how it needs to escalate based on the tasks of the harness itself. So that process should according to this anyway, be cheaper. So rank 2, where it does not fit, it predicts benchmark aggregates, not per instance pass fail. Our escalation trigger is a per request. Did this task fail? Bench press can't answer that. So what this does is augments my training process. Its probes are knowledge reasoning benchmarks, etc. Session, not agentic code repair. For our routing, we'd need to derive a code relevant version. So what it's telling me is my meta harness benchmarks are essentially benchmarking on coding capability, not on like reasoning and understanding capability. Um, it needs a score matrix to bootstrap the factors. Oh, sorry. Lots of activity around the cottage at the moment. Um, all right, so yeah, let's jump back here for a moment and look at this document. Oh, where did I put that? There we go. All right. Do you follow my thinking so far, or am I rambling? Like,
Hmm.
does this make sense? Like, basically, it's a really capable model for certain things. You need to understand what those certain things are. You need to measure the ability for that model to do those certain things, and then have a mechanism to measure where other models can't do those things, and then have a system that escalates to that model if and when those certain things happen. And if you do it that way, you can essentially save, let's just say, round about 25% on the cost of beyond frontier capability, because you're mixing dumb models with smarter models. It's like in a company where you have, an apprentice. How do you make an apprentice smarter? Well, you put him with a master, and the master understands the things that the apprentice does, and the combination of an apprentice and a master means you can scale more efficiently because you have someone doing the majority of the work, and then if and when something needs more capability, there's someone there to help them. And it's exactly the same sort of concept. Ofer, do you have another comment?
Yeah, a question to you. So the fallback from Fable 5 to Opus happened through the Claude harness itself. Would it be possible to use the decompiler you created to not let it
Well,
fall back?
it's not happening through the Claude harness. It's in my scenario, it's happening through the meta harness that sits independently of the Claude system. So what I've done, and and I don't open source everything, but what I do have is a meta LLM service that I've created. Now, the meta LLM service essentially is a API endpoint that looks and acts like Anthropic. And so what I'm doing is I'm replacing the API endpoint with my API endpoint, and then Anthropic thinks it's using a secondary Anthropic service, but it's actually using mine. And as the system is making requests, so you're asking it to write files and do whatever it's doing, the meta harness is ultra fast deciding which underlying model it should use. Now, as responses come in, it did something, but it failed for whatever reason. The system will then say, "Oh, this has failed twice," and it'll escalate to a better model. And by the way, a lot of that failure is always happening in Claude Code. It's just obfuscated. You don't see it because it's hidden in some kind of nested, agent runtime component that's in Claude Code. But in this kind of scenario, I'm catching it and then I'm adapting the model and optimizing it for it. The other thing I'm capable of doing is I can learn based on the activity. So the more I do training, the more I interact with the system, the better the system becomes at understanding what works and what doesn't in the context of whatever application it's working against. So it's incrementally getting better as well. So after 24 hours, you notice that my capabilities have actually gotten better than their particular benchmarks. That's because I've had 24 hours of finagling with it to get it to achieve better, more capable results within Claude Code. The drawback of that scenario is I'm paying for the entire the workflow of that particular Claude Code instance. I'm not using my usage scenario that comes free with the max plan.
Mhm.
So this is like the supercharger, but it'll cost you. You could blast through $1,000 in a day quite easily. if you were just to pay for it straight up. Now, in a company, most large organizations that I'm talking to don't even allow you to use Macs anyway. So they're spending $7,500 a day to have basically a kind of roof flow style, always running 24 hours a day development cycle happening. Now, saving 25% on 7,500 bucks a day is a big number, right? Suddenly it's meaningful, right? It's thousands of dollars, and now times 30 days or whatever the magic number a month is, you're talking a substantial savings. You're talking probably $25,000 savings per month by using that escalator. And you can take it further. If you don't need the Fable at all, you're talking suddenly a somewhere between a 12 and 56 times savings, so 90 something percent savings on their cost because you don't really need the Fable for most things. So you're creating a harness that says, one, create a budget. I don't want more than 10% of my requests to ever hit Fable. It only needs to hit Fable and things that are truly valuable to the problems in which it's solving. Two, here are some examples of what those problems look like based on training. And three, allow the system to be smart enough to adapt and get better the more we use the system, and then your savings will increase the more you start using it. And then what was 25% hopefully becomes something larger than 25%. Stuart, yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned before that it got smarter. You spent a day you were working with it. Was that you, Ruve, working with it, or was that you letting it run in the background and Ruve Vector getting smarter about what it was doing with it? How much of that work was you active versus systems in the background just rocking and rolling and getting more intelligent?
It's 80% me. Unfortunately, there is no
Okay.
easy button for eval, at least not in one that's cost efficient. So,
Okay.
when it comes to like benchmarking and optimizing, the work that I do is driven by me to figure out the optimal way. Like you saw what Ofer just gave me, that's a perfect example. Okay, I discover, I find, I look, I add, and I adapt, and I ask questions. Now, the reason I'm doing all that is essentially so you don't have to. So
Right.
once the meta harness is optimized for particular verticals or things that I've trained it on, the concept is you just can kind of let it go on the easy button, right? Let it figure out and optimize itself. But to get to the point of that kind of initial self, optimization, that's a lot of iterative back and forth with me and Claude kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Okay. And
Um,
the follow-on question, which everybody's going to ask is there a thought where you build this as the default mechanism into Rooflow so it automatically builds using the most efficient versus just the easiest high? We're building everything on Fable 5 until you manually tell me otherwise.
Yes. So Claude, and I've already done that a while ago. So what Claude lets you do with skills and agents and commands is you can define the model that runs those particular skills. So what you don't necessarily want is the model to always sort of blast through and just say use Fable for everything. And if you don't have skills set up with model specific options, and it's just going to use whatever model you specifically chose as the model you want. Now, if you look at the way that I've devised the skills, it ranges from haiku to sonnet to opus, and now I haven't pushed these out yet to fable. I had to remove all the fable options after they made it stop working. But essentially, what that means is I can do the benchmarking, so I can use the meta harness to figure out in the different plugins and skills that I have what benchmark works the best for the particular problem it's trying to solve. Then once I figured that out, then I can then define either a primary or secondary skill that have different models available to it. And obviously some sort of cascade between, haiku to fable, depending on what needs to happen. Now, the benefit to
Right.
that when in terms of usage is it means that if you're falling back to haiku for things that don't really require a whole lot of thinking, you're going to get, I don't know what the exact number was. I know it's a lot more for haiku than it was for obviously opus. So you're going to extend your usage substantially. Secondly, if you are one of those enterprises who are stuck using, the proprietary, Azure, GCP, or Bedrock from Amazon
Mhm.
version, it's going to be much more cost efficient because it's
Yeah,
it's
I think I understand that, and everybody wants it. The question is in the behavioral economics concept, is the default position out of the box going to implement it so that it happens, or is it a tool that you then have to actively go and do this, this, and this? Otherwise, Rooflow's never going to use it until you implement it. That's the core question, because if you default to have it work efficiently and do that by its nature, whenever you use Rooflow, people are going to benefit from it
yeah.
95% more often than if they have to manually do it.
There's a couple things I need to do.
Okay.
The biggest change, because I've implemented that sort of escalation concept a while ago, like January.
Yep.
And but what I didn't do is I didn't force it in the Claude.md file. So
Right.
what I probably need to do is add a couple lines in Claude MD that basically allows Claude to understand that it does have the ability to change its model. And two, here's generally when and why you would want to change the model, both in terms of uh, the Pareto frontier style of cost versus performance, and then I need to do some testing, probably using dash P to figure out exactly the optimal collection of prompting that allows it to find and automatically do that. But the vast majority of that is going to be a Claude.md that drives that to other skills. Now, I need to benchmark it to validate that it works as expected. To do all that benchmarking, I'm using a Claude-P harness that basically invokes the same request multiple times with multiple different approaches and models until I find
Mhm.
the best combination of prompt, model, and reasoning effort.
I think the general request for the group that uses your stuff and isn't you is whatever you could do to speed up the ability to have the default be optimization is on. It works out of the box and does it. It may not be optimally optimized, but it's a hell of a lot better than it's off until you turn it on, because I think a lot of people just don't know to turn it on. They understand conceptually that they should, but they're not quite sure what the mechanics are, and they try not to mess with it because folks don't always understand the depth of what RootVector and RootFlow do.
Yeah, that's fair. Guy, do you have a comment?
I had a question. What open source model provider are you using for that's enterprise friendly for models like GLM? And are you doing anything like using a more trusted model to verify the results of a less trusted model?
Um, I'm using a variety. So my model, so I for depending on what I want to do, I use right now I'm using Open Router because I it's handy and I've got the corporate credit card signed up in it. To be honest, that's why I used it. But so for GLM, that is my base model. It's efficient, it's effective. I haven't seen any issues of backdoors or any kind of exploitation. It allows me to do CVE style sort of, I don't know what the right word is, discovery really well, much better than Fable, unless you sign up. I guess apparently there's an option for that. Um, so that's great. So I can start with a kind of GLM that does and finds my problems. Then to fix it, then I can escalate depending on the type of problem it finds up until, to Sonnet. That's also using Open Router. Now, the other thing you're asking is probably relating to possibly uncensored models. If for I like to explore uncensored models because I like to explore that area that makes everyone feel uncomfortable, as you probably are aware. The area between what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and maybe step one side across the line. Uncensored models allow me to do that really well. Things like Dolphin still works really great for that, especially if it's fine-tuned. And for those, I use Hugging Face Pro, and that's just a quick and easy way to get GPU resources. Now, the problem with the GPU resources, I think Judd has mentioned this a few times. The cheap days of Hugging Face are over. So at which point I switched to Jed's approach of Rackspace market, and I can run my own models pretty easily on dirt cheap GPUs that you can get basically in the middle of the night. And that's the combination. So my next big step right now will likely be a rack space cluster to see if I can essentially fine tune GLM with all the best bits of Fable and Sonnet. And if I can do that, then I can drop my frontier costs even further. Now, apparently, you're not supposed to distill. Every single person on the planet is doing it, and it's not. It seems to work. I think the terms of service of Claude say you're not supposed to do it. So, you know, do it with care.
Uh,
I've got throwaway
other thing,
accounts that I use that aren't my primary accounts for
the
that
other thing I'm
purpose.
seeing is
I've never been banned though. But
Cloud
that
Code
doesn't mean I
is.
won't. Yeah, go ahead,
I was
Jeff.
going to say the other thing is Cloud Code seems to be less friendly to non-anthropic models and even breaking integrations with anthropic models being served by non-anthropic sources. Are you seeing this as a lock-in thing that they're trying to do, or
I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think Anthropic is trying to be bad. I think that they're trying to serve two masters, right? They're in this strange spot where there's suddenly a heck of a lot of government oversight, even though they promised there wouldn't be. And the government oversight isn't necessarily to protect people against the harms of AI. It's to protect the economy against the harms of a super intelligent AI that isn't controlled by that particular government. And in that scenario, you've got these systems that are in this weird spot saying, well, we want to move fast, we want to be competitive in this world, but we also don't want to, one, upset the government itself, who isn't sure what this stuff even can do, and two, we don't want to enable, the derivatives coming out of China, every time we put something out there. I don't know if that answers your question or just pulls me down a weird rabbit hole. But
no, that makes sense. I just feel like it's getting harder and harder to do clever things with Claude Code using other models. Like it keeps breaking all the time, and it feels intentional. But anyways,
well, the strangest thing is try the dash P stuff. Like the real question is why does dash P work so much better than Claude, graphical CLI and the desktop tool? Right? You'd think it's the same underlying model. It's using generally the same approach. So my guess is there's some kind of some code somewhere, kind of like that backdoor that they discovered the other day, that handles the dash P slightly differently than the web UI or the CLI. So if you're really wanting to try to push the limits, then use dash P.
all right,
I
thank
don't
you.
know.
Prove
That
maybe because Dash P is meant to be non-interactive, it needs to come up with something at the end, as opposed to the interface might ask you a question, give you options, and more ready for a chat about what you're trying to solve.
maybe. It's hard to say, but somewhere there's stuff happening beyond our pay grade that is driving this for sure. And what's more exciting for me, is what Sonnet and Opus and now Fable represents is what the frontier of open source will be in a few months. And we certainly haven't hit a wall yet. And if anything, what we're seeing in these model is this kind of constellation approach, which I think we called mixture of experts, but it's become more than a mixture of experts at this point. It's this ability to do really hyper intelligent segmented models that create multiple sort of components. Now, and if you look at almost all the intelligence being pushed out, it's the combination of a kind of adaptive harness that can be created in a kind of reasoning like state. So under the covers of Fable, my guess and I don't have any proof of this, but my guess is they're probably using similar kind of fusion style approach that you're seeing, me and others, and kind of mixing these different models together. But they're doing that under the covers across multiple mini, mixture of expert style models. But they're doing that ultra fast, so it doesn't. There's no latency. There's a common response. So this idea of a meta LLM, which is what I've been calling it, this kind of connect a whole bunch of different models and LLMs into a congruent stream, both in and out of these systems, is what's making these systems substantially smarter. Tie that into some memory and some other, ability for it to understand what works, and then you suddenly have a recursive, self-improving sort of model environment, and that's what Fable looks like to me. I don't have no proof of this, but that's what it seems like it is. Yeah, Alexandra, how's it going?
Hey, how are you guys? Great to see you. A couple of questions. Do you guys have any one of you have the organization cloud account? Because
What do you
what
mean
I'm,
by cloud accounts?
yeah, because what I'm trying to do is actually use the advisor under the cloud to actually put it to Fable, but apparently it's only allowed if you actually have an organization a cloud account. That's why I was asking. Because what I'm trying to do is actually doing a little bit of the work. You were like referring to Roof, but using just the advisor, I just using the Sonnet 5 and then putting the advisor to 4.8 because I'm not able to use Fable, right? And then after I use Fable to run it at the end. So the harness you're kind of creating with the harness is kind of useful if I'm able to add another one or even add like GLM 5.2 that works really well with Cloud Code. You know what I mean? That's why I
And
was wondering if you
Alexandra, I
play.
apologize. I had some internet issues, so I didn't get basically all of what you said. Um,
Oh,
maybe
okay, yeah,
someone else can answer if you want, but my internet stopped literally when you started talking. And I'm back though.
okay.
Alejandro, go
Well,
ahead.
yeah. Well, I can repeat the roof. Essentially, the workflow I've been working on is using the advisor, dash advisor, and then put it to 4.8 and using Sonnet as the main orchestrator, right? But then apparently you need a organization cloud account in order to use Fable as the Fable 5 as the actually advisor. So I was wondering if any one of you have been able to do that. Because what I'm looking at is if you actually already are working on this meta harness, it would be really interesting to actually have this workflow and then be able to infuse the GLM 5.2 or even the Fable on top, essentially without having to have the organizational cloud account.
I'm not sure I follow exactly what are you proposing something alternate to the escalation meta harness? I'm not sure I follow.
Yeah,
In
well,
the
if you open right now Claude and you go dash advisor, right?
Hmm.
You can actually enter and then you can pick Fable 5, Opus 4.8, Sonnet 5. But then essentially what happened is that a Fable 5 is only available if you have an organization cloud account. So right now, only be able to use the Opus 4.8 as the advisor itself. That is
in
why I
I
was
the
just don't
wondering
use.
if you
I
guys
don't know.
play around with.
I don't use the advisor. What do you? How do you use the advisor?
Okay. Essentially,
I've got
is it
Fable as an option for my advisor.
you got what? Sorry.
I'm trying the advisor right now, and I've got advisor.
Yeah,
So what
but
do I do with it?
when you actually do the request, it doesn't work. I put this in the chat yesterday, but nobody responded to it. So,
Okay, so what should I ask it?
um, tell him set up the okay. Asking okay, verified the ADR 2.3 doesn't matter 203 with the advisor.
Okay, latest
Can you go
ADRs. There's something.
settings.json as well?
And you're saying it switches from Fable 5 to something else?
Well, you have to the workflow I'm using Sonnet as the main model, and then using 4.8 as the advisor. In this case, you have to tell him, verify with the advisor. You have to be specific. You're just verifying the latest ADR with your model right now.
So I should do eight. So you're saying again, I've never used the advisor, but so
Yeah, change
vi
the model to Sonnet 5 first.
well, I'm in the middle of doing something else, so I don't want to mess with that.
Oh, okay.
But I
Well,
like I'm not even
it,
to be honest, I've never used the advisor for anything. What does it even do?
Like a
it
one.
does that loop that you're talking about. Essentially, you're running Sonnet 5, and then it goes and verifies the workflow wherever you want to with a 4.8 in this case, because Fable 5 is not working.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, I
So
don't
I
I'm not really sure what you're trying to do or what it does, so I can't really
so
answer.
what advisor does is pick your base model. So say if you set your default to haiku, and then
Hmm.
you said advisor and you gave it a task, it would try and do it with haiku. And if it sees that haiku's not getting it, it'll update to either Fable or Opus and do the help it get going and then go back to the other model. So it tries to do what you're doing with just really
Hmm.
two models. You
Two
get to
models.
pick the dumb model and the smart model.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
It's
So,
so
if it's
yeah.
still in the system, thinking
Is
you
it
should be able to
customizable?
infuse other models into it too. That's what
So
I'm looking at.
so your question is, can we customize the advisor capability to automatically cost optimize the selection?
Exactly. That's where I think is the where the money is.
There's another, they have a bunch of hidden model settings. So there's one called Opus Plan that if
Hmm.
you switch your model to Opus Plan, what it'll do is it'll do in planning mode, it'll use Opus, but for everything else, it'll use your default
Oh,
model,
here you
if
go.
that's Sonnet or Haiku. And
Yeah.
I think they keep adding these things. I don't know if
Mhm.
there's a better option hidden somewhere, but those are the two I'm aware of.
And this is the problem you were describing, where it says
Yeah.
unavailable.
Exactly. Yeah. Apparently, you need to have an organization account in order to use Fable 5 as an advisor, but you can set it up to 4.8. So my workflow right now has been actually running Sonnet 5 with the advisor 4.8, and it actually gives me really, really good results.
Mhm.
Ideally, if we are able to like work with the meta harness and be able to infuse other more models, with the same functionality, would be really cool because it's definitely like if already the tooling is integrated, I think it would be easier just to play around with it.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. So
Yeah.
according to this, what we already have, what an advisor adds. So we've got the fusion loop, which currently implements the downward direction. A strong lead delegates mechanical work to a cheap sidekick delegate tool, plus a router that escalates the working model. An advisor is the inverse. A cheap model runs the whole loop, and a strong model is consulted at decision points with the full transcript. It advises but never acts. I gotcha. So that's structurally different from both existing levers. Who acts? So sidekick, cheap on leads orders, router, who's ever routed, advisor, always the cheap loop. Strong model, nothing. Okay, let's do it. Um,
Yeah.
Create a detailed ADR to implement. I love it. I don't know. Let's do it. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, but it sounds like it's a good approach. Um,
You know, definitely.
to implement this concept, and let's ultra think on that one. And what was the other one you mentioned? There was the ultra. What was ultra guy you mentioned the other feature?
Opus
You know,
Plan. So if you set your
oh yeah, the
model
Ultra Planner.
to /model Opus Plan, it'll anytime you switch to planning mode, it'll use Opus, and anytime it switches out of planning mode, it uses whatever your default is.
Okay. Well, in this case, I'm just going to use Fable to implement the strategy, to implement this concept. Um, oops.
There's also a subagents model you can select. So you can actually tell your subagents to use a less capable model.
Okay, let's explore that too. All right. There's so much stuff. It's hard to know all the various features, you know? It's like never and that's the most exciting part for me is to find something I didn't know even was possible. Subagents, how do I think I played with the subagents.
They actually kind
These are
of
mine.
took some agents away, in the latest
Mm,
update.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
well, that's
they did.
let's see what I got here. Agent these are all
So it was
mine.
called,
Oh, here it asks to create subagent. You're right. It says removed. Ask Claude to create, manage subagents or edit .claude agents. Of course they did, because why would you keep a feature for more than a month and a half?
yeah, it's maddening, isn't it?
Like it's an like so I use subagents a lot in Rooflow. So apparently what I need to do now is use whatever new concocted scheme they've come up with. It never ends. All right, so this one's using the ADR, so let's let that cook for a minute. What we got here? Oh, I created this is my first project. It just finished. Let's take a look. All right. This was a port. So one of the hardest things you can do in coding is porting. So I ported a project. I think Ofer someone posted on the Agentic tribe earlier. Right, here we go. So RV face, a Rust WebAssembly face recognition, a complete port of the face plugin open source recognition SDK, Python, PyTorch to Rust, running natively in the browser or on web GPU. This was a substantial project. And I think was it Oprah? Did you post this earlier, or someone did?
Wasn't me.
I don't know. Okay, someone posted this other project. Um, and essentially, it's a Facebook. It's a this proves a couple things for me. One, it's face recognition, which is that gray area that should we be doing this or shouldn't we be doing this? And two, it represents one of the harder problems. Can you effectively, take a complex piece of software and completely port it to another environment and make it work provably? So in this case, it looks like it at least created screenshots of okay, well, where is it hosted? No, it's probably not. I haven't deployed it yet. This is fresh off the development, but completed all three networks posed to burn. So it's got PyTorch parity. Take a look at the code. Actually, I'm going to deploy this. While I'm at it, I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to deploy. And I'm cheap, so I don't want to spend any money on hosting. So I'm going to deploy it to GitHub Pages. All right. And that'll prove that it works. Whenever I get it to build things, I always get it to build some kind of UI and prove to me, and then take screenshots to prove that it actually works. Let's look at the crates. So it created the CLI. There's no README in any of these crates, which is interesting. And create a
It looks like
WASM,
subagents are still there.
just
I did some
not prime
searching.
RV face project and scope. Take the face plugin project and move it over. Parity. There's the demo components. Here's the models. It looks like it trained a model. Models converted to safe tensor weights land. This is pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. I started this morning around 9 o'clock Eastern, and I went out and did my thing, and it's finished. Probably finished a while ago. It was able to take a complex AI system that does facial recognition. Now I gotta actually obviously run it and prove it, but it looks, generally speaking, it did a complete entire port of the thing. Each
Do you
file
know
it
if it
ported.
does it have
Yeah.
any way to know if I'm showing it a picture versus a real person or anything like that?
That's what we're gonna have to find out. This is hot off the press. I haven't even had a chance to look at what the heck it's built. Here, let me share it in the chat for you guys. But basically, I'm just like, take this thing and port it to another language, make it fast, and make it work in the browser. Like the other system didn't work in the browser. It was PyTorch, so it was slow. This is all the things it wasn't. Yeah, same person. I'm sure we could probably figure out a way to do that. Is it deployed yet? I just want to get the web version working.
Ruth, when you're porting these projects, are you using your own ROS engine to translate the functions, or you just let
Yeah.
Fable take care of everything?
In this case, I just wanted to see what Fable could do. Like,
Okay.
so all I did was I used a meta harness because I've used meta harnesses to do all this kind of porting. But other than that, it went in and you can see the ADRs. They're not even particularly complex. They're like pretty lightweight. And now it's still deploying, so I gotta wait a minute for it to finish doing that. But in a minute we should see the web. I gotta jump to my next call here, and which I unfortunately got scheduled at the top of the hour. But okay, it's almost done. I just want to see the final web UI. All
Uh,
right.
Ruth, what time are you taking off?
From this call,
Yeah.
in a few minutes. My call is not until 1:15.
Okay.
All right,
Because
here.
yeah, I wanted to share something with you guys.
Oh, that still takes a second to load.
You
All right, I'll come back to this. And you guys can stick around.
okay? Yeah. Well, what I just put it in the chat, guys. If you can open it, Ruth, and share it as well. Essentially, I don't know if you guys are aware of there was a huge double earthquake that hit Venezuela on June 24th, right?
Hmm.
It looks like everything got devastated. The areas that are actually hit by the earthquake, right? So, and this is a huge issue because there's not actually any government. There's no right now, and then they're just like trying to still like find people and save animals, and it's devastating. And I was thinking, well, how can I actually put my skill, to good use? And then essentially, I came up with this initiative. It's actually ideas to actually host a hackathon for the month of July, maybe August too, and then actually, try to come up with the AI solutions, for first response, and think about like logistics, intelligence, right? Because that's actually the organization that is actually the most needed thing happening right now. That's actually missing Venezuela, right? Because all the resources are getting all gathered, by actually using a central intelligence system. So on this, actually, I thought, wow, okay, I can build something, but I think the best is actually to actually come together as a community and also like build solutions, for it, right? Because people, might have better ideas, the implementation might get better, right? So that's something I wanted to share with you guys. If you guys want to participate, it'd be awesome.
You want to build something, or have you built something?
Well, if you check it on the chat, I haven't built anything. I'm looking to host this hackathon for the month of July. I have a couple of ideas to actually create like intelligence system that look at all the areas that actually got hit by the earthquake and actually how to provide a better logistic systems. But that's what I mean. I feel like everybody could actually bring their own ideas, right? So be able to work something powerful. I even thought about like trying using the Cognito to actually be able if we might be able to actually then deploy there. That's why I want to share with you this with you too, Roof, right? Maybe we're able to actually help to find people there too, right? So
I hear there's, I don't know if this number is correct, Alejandro, but did I hear there's something like as many as 70,000 people that may be buried?
it actually might be more than that because the biggest issue is like the government is very corrupt and they're actually trying to mask all the data points that come out, right? It's a huge issue because like they're not actually supporting any type of real heavy machinery that actually even needed to actually take and rescue these people, right? So Yeah, and they're having all the roadblocks for the actual rescue teams that are actually trying to come into a system, right? Even they don't even provide anything for the rescue teams from other countries. Like the rescue teams are literally from Colombia, Salvador, Ecuador, and even Spain. That actually just literally sleeping on the streets, and people are actually connecting, making food, and just bring them food every day so they can continue. Right, so yeah, it's actually devastating. It looks like a war zone. You can like see a couple of videos online. I just didn't want to make this. I wanted to make this as actually something where like brain minds can come together and actually think in ways how actually AI can actually help in these situations, right? That is why everything, all submissions will be open source. So because the idea is actually use this platform for if there's another earthquake that hits anywhere, in the world, when we're able to use these tools for those two, right? For those events as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's kind of like coding for good. Back in my cloud days, we did that for Haiti, and there was a massive earthquake in Haiti during the cloud boom, and a whole bunch of us created a global series of cloud camp events. And essentially, we just hacked stuff and created tools that could help in the recovery and sort of reestablishment of their society. It was early days. We weren't able to build that much because back in whenever it was 15 years ago, it was really hard to build things quickly. But the idea was right. It's just now we have the tools to be able to maybe do it more quickly. We've got the Wi-Fi mat that we did with Matt Matthews, where that can detect signs of life in rubble. I know it's been more than a week, so I can't say how useful that would be at this point. But yeah, we can do lots of cool stuff with sensors and make sure that you know these sorts of tragedies don't happen, possibly.
Yeah. And also every single different perspective might be really useful, because people have experience in logistics might be very, you bring that mindset to actually, how we look at this problem of distributing actually food and goods, as a logistic problem as well, right? And then people have like obviously like first responders, like a experience, might also be essential for it too, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. I am having dinner with a friend whose mom started in the German Air Rescue Service, and they have a nonprofit here in Switzerland. I'll bring it up with him in case you need a nonprofit to work underneath. And then next week I'm at the UN AI Summit. There's a week-long thing at the UN. So if there's other people that seem interesting, I'm going to drop my number in here so you can just like WhatsApp me to remind me your number, and anything I come up with, I'll send it your way.
All right.
Thank you so much. That would be actually great. I also put my number. I'm putting my email, guys, because I know like any help is very welcome. Right now, what I'm
Yeah,
doing a lot is actually I'm researching a lot of like different frameworks to actually how United Nations or other type of organizations actually go and think about these natural disasters, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, may
I
I
gotta jump.
Oh, you
So
got it.
I'll
Okay, no
see.
problem.
I'll see. You guys can hang out here if Rob's still on or whoever. And let me make Rob the host. And I'll see you tomorrow. Probably from the lake house.
Yep.
Hopefully Maynard holds out. Um, and Stu, I'm excited to see your latest updates to the Helix system too. So I saw your screenshots. Amazing. That by the way, there was a question in regards from Ofer on the brain to query system. Yes, I've been working on integrating that into my Rube neural system. So let's see how Fable can do. I started that actually on Monday. I haven't had a chance to review it, but yeah,
With
that basically allows you to control keyboards and things with your brain. And Chris sent me a new head system that does my EEGs. So I'm gonna try to control my
Uh,
computer with my brain. We'll see
so
how well it
okay,
Is
works.
PyBrain
Sabi.
working?
My
Very quickly, is PyBrain active? I'm getting notes that saying it's locked. I know you locked it
uh
down because it was getting pricey, but just curious if we should disregard it right now if it's still active.
might need a little TLC.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
But we got a brand new model and escalation and a few other things that you've pointed me to today to see if we can improve it a little bit. Yeah, I gotta go. I'll talk to you
Rock
guys
on.
later.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay. And
Awesome.
Alejandro and sorry, I missed how you said your name. Is it a Moga?
Yeah, Moganatha. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was I kind of joined half an hour late today. I've been kind
No,
of in the group for a while and I haven't been attending these meetings and because I've had a bunch of stuff going on, especially some family stuff with the aging family members. And so now I'm starting to I managed to make it out to one of the last meetings in Toronto and then I'm now going to try and it's on my to-dos that I want to get going. I was kind
yeah.
of curious, is anyone using any agents that detect bias in other when they're in the LLMs and so on they call?
Can you expand a little bit? What do you mean the text bias on the LLMs?
Well, for instance, okay, so I was using, I'm developing an AI governance system and I had gotten pretty far manually, okay? And then, I put stuff into ChatGPT and, because it was getting pretty good at drafting stuff, I put all my documents in and I asked for versions and different things. And over time, it started to drift, right? And I asked for like a constitutional document and it added all sorts of extra things in there that were never asked for, that were not part of it based on the way it's been programmed that it should do things, like based on the values and morals and whatever they have, right? And it's like, well, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. And, so there was a disconnect between the entire series of prompts and, where we eventually got, there was a drift that happened. And so I was thinking when you've got a harness system, one of the things that you could do is have an agent that actually tracks that kind of drifting and notes that for models and makes that part of your context memory graph.
There
Well,
is
I was
a
looking
prop.
at this. Sorry,
Sorry.
check it out. I'm gonna put it on the chat, guys. But to be honest with you, I don't have a lot of experience on that. I know that it's a big issue because like that's essentially the LLM's alignment. Um, when I used to work at OCAD University, Utah is the director of the Inclusive Center of Design, right? And she actually was the one who brought the framework to the United Nations to actually make the LLMs align, actually include people even with disability, because she noticed people with disability are completely there's no data on them, right? So it was important to have this push to actually make the models inclusive, and also align with human values, essentially.
Yeah, I know there's some people working on it. Yeah,
There
this
is
this paper is interesting. Thank you. I'll look through it after the call. It's just, and especially if you look at the topics that are going on next week for the UN, I'm trying to these next days prepare and read through the UN documents and, see, unfortunately, because of the family issues I dealing with, I didn't get my application in time to attend the main deliberations with the Secretary General and stuff, but I'm going to all the other events. So this has been for me like the big thing, and especially because I'm AI governance and accountability and ethics and observability are really my interest. Like more sort of the meta layer, that's why I liked Dhruv and the meta
yeah.
hardness because, at the end of the day, I think the real, like he said in a post, it's like that layer is going to be more important because there's always going to be new models coming out. So, and especially when models can create new models. But there's that layer, there's like tracking drift, like one of the things I've been looking at is, using stateful databases. So when you have a model in a certain state that's been approved and vetted, then it gets, locked in at that version. And then as there's new changes, if you notice that it's kind of been code injected or there's something that's happened to it, you can kill that version and go back to the approved version without wondering where you lost your track. Almost like a time machine backup for the model, so that you don't lose too much progress when it gets compromised.
Is my audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay, super. I just want to mention for you, if you look up Bloom by Anthropic,
Okay.
it's a tool that you can integrate that will help you uncover and bench dispositional behaviors in models. It came out in December 2025. You can reference the models that they ran against the bench, or you can integrate it as a tool set and then run models against it. So one of the big challenges definitely is when you're working with constitutional models is sorting out the steering that's happening from the development of the model itself and then the system prompts that are underneath it. So that might be helpful for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think bias detection and things like this are sort of important. I'm also curious, like I know the way the roof flow works right now, when you're connecting to like Claude and so on, you're burning tokens, yeah, like through the you're not using the kind of the capped well no, I think he's using the capped amount in your account, right? But then you go over it fairly quickly currently.
You mean in roof flow specifically?
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking back because I'm wanting to now get started using it. I've been like, looking through it and so on. And because, I was a little bit scared. I started going with putting it in my computer, but I'm like, oh my God, all my files are on here. And so actually I've got an old laptop that I'm going to maybe use to start by, installing everything over there. And so I've been thinking about like burning token costs and, how to cap that, like if you're running these big things and he's like, oh, that was $1,000. It's like, well, what if you didn't want to spend $1,000 on that? Like how do you tell it in advance? Like how can we work with that? That okay, I want you to do this, but cap me out at this level.
I haven't seen this
And
budget tool in there. That's interesting. Under the Cloud Max Pro subscription, the $200 USD, that gives you a ton of weight. But mind you, I hit my caps within 45 minutes with Fable this morning, so I'm on ice for another hour and a half. But yeah, those are the combinations like the escalator tool that he was talking about. I don't know. Is there an inherent budget tool? Does anybody know within the settings JSON where you can cap out a budget for a specific task?
what you can do is you can actually, if you go to the Claude console and you go click on your name at the bottom, you go on settings, and then you go on the billing. You can use credits for certain task, right? That's after you have max out your
Yeah.
your your plan, right? So, and then essentially what's going to happen, you can tell him, hey, we have a budget of $50. Make sure you build that within that. It's a prompt. Right now, I only seen people be able to do it based on a prompt, right? So you're actually telling, hey, we need to evaluate this within $100 or whatever, right? So that is why a roof we're discussing actually this meta harness, right? Look right now into setting up your main model as Sonnet 5 and then using the advisor as 4.8. That will save you a lot of tokens. And it seems to be very effective. And then the workflow I'm doing right now, after that's done, I'm actually putting Fable 5 to validate and make sure it didn't miss anything, right? So just to maximize the token output. And another thing you have to take into consideration, I know some people actually they use the needle approach, where essentially if you're building a new feature, you're researching something specific, you use a dev container, a new instance only for that. So it makes sure that everything, all the tokens are being used to the maximum to build that specific feature or doing the research, right? You don't want to do a lot of like different agentic agent swarms or things like that because actually increase your token usage a lot too.
Hey everybody, I've been kind of, I guess, trolling. I've been listening to this conversation, and I just couldn't help but think. Like last night, I posted something on the Agentic tribe around, routing and tiering and stuff, and it just seems a little aligned to this conversation. And if I've been following correctly, there's two things. Like one is just like the cost performance. How could you maybe get more value leveraging open weight or open source models and then delegate or verify the results of those with, say frontier models, for example. So you're keeping your costs down, but you're keeping your quality high. And so I kind of pulled on that thread last night a little bit using Fable to do some research about like how could we use RuFlow and RuVector, what facilities are there, et cetera. And so I know that that was probably part of the conversation that I might have missed a little bit of the detail on, but it seems like there's an opportunity to improve the out of the box experience for people who are coming here who are maybe wanting to invest a little bit more, let's say, really the word to say invest less in the use of frontier models, so they're not burning their tokens and burning their value, their dollar spend per chance, and getting value out of these open weights. So I'm just curious, like, is that I'm getting validation. I'm just seeking validation here. Is that what people are interested in here in this thread of conversation that we're having?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I was looking at with what Roof was doing is you can do things like, with either Olam or whatever, and you can run some models locally on your laptop or whatever you're using, and then you can have a server running, or, either in, like he was mentioning, rack space, or, if you have like hardware that you've deployed, like a DGX Spark or something like that, you can have a bigger model there, and then go to the frontier model when, like, say, Kimi or GLM or something is not enough. Like, that's what we've been looking at, that kind of model where, like, especially if you've got some sort of RAG or RLM system running on your local machine with your files and on the server, and that way you're keeping things as sovereign, as local as possible. That's kind of what we've been thinking about, but I'm happy to hear other people's thoughts on that.
Well, Ruve has mapped out two paths. One that is in play in RuFlow, which is the Tiny Dancer, and trains a GRNN model in order to help determine and assign tasks to models based on complexity. But what he was talking about at the beginning of the call is an escalator module that moves through a sequence of more sophisticated and expensive models based on the task, but starting with the easiest one, and then if it can't complete a loop in enough time, bumping it up to the next most capable model and continuing that. Advisor stuff that we saw, that's really, as Guy pointed out, it's a two model solution. You have the one that you run and then the advisor that it calls on. So it looks like, now I haven't played with the new one from Ruve yet, but yeah, that's the general path, especially now, with Fable and the pricing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna publish some research I had done last night, and also it's two things. It's one of like what might be done, and maybe Ruve is already going and running on this. Is like what could be done in that pathway to kind of allow for not just it's either you set RuFlow to work with, say, OpenRouter or Olama, and so you're only able to stay in that vector versus the out of the box experience of either Codex or OpenAI or Claude models. It's what I'm looking for is like, hey, I want to start with OpenWeight, and if it's running and it doesn't get the quality bar, there's some tuning and configuration there, then yes, it escalates. But the real driver is start with open weight model first, stay private sovereign as much as you can, and also keep the cost down, right? So you're burning tokens, but you don't care because you're hosting on your hardware or whatever. And then it only ever escalates when it needs to based on some quality or verification. So I posted something in the Agentic tribe around research and what could be done. And then I did a subsequent step of like, well, if that doesn't get uptaked, like if Ruth says, you know what, I don't want to do that, how might I do that myself with some commodity tooling, et cetera? So I had something, that was what I was going to wake up this morning to do. I got up late. I'm on the West Coast, and to actually go and explore. But yeah, like this intrigues me. It's like I was having these thoughts last night, and I'm so glad to hear that they're getting validated in today's conversation.
Nice. Yeah, send your agents off to see if I don't know. Stuart, do you know, did that escalation um, work that Rufus was talking about it? Did he say his is that
No
been
idea.
published? Oh,
I don't have a feel.
okay. Well, we'll find out. And then as also, if there's some things that you think are of interest, Chris, and you want to do a lightning talk tomorrow, there's still a couple spots. It's about 4 minutes of screen time, and then usually 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards. So that's
I'd be up for that. I'll see how far I can get today, and I'll ping you in the tribe about that.
Yeah, one thing for tomorrow that I'd be curious about fielding is if people who aren't coming to the UN things have thoughts or questions, like if you were there, what would you want to contribute and what would you want to ask? Because I'd be curious to hear that, because then maybe I can, kind of go and see if, if it's something I don't feel embarrassed to say, then I'm happy to talk about it.
there's so much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, but it'd be an interesting conversation given the timing.
Yeah,
And I'll show up tomorrow.
nice.
I also pasted on the chat, guys, some resources if you are looking at LLM routers. That's actually the technical term for what you guys looking at doing. Some people in production, they use Open Router because it's really a way to integrate the API, but you're actually using all the calls directly from the Open Router clusters, right? So it will cost you money. It's not like a cloud plan, right? So
Yeah,
you have to
Hunter,
look at.
yeah, you definitely validating all the stuff I said. Yeah, I'm trying to get away with not using pay for service. I'm trying to like host. What can we get value for money on local hardware for folks who've made that investment for sure.
I
Yeah,
want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alejandro.
no, I just want to say, like, I also run Olama locally, right, to do certain things locally, and that's how I started, and then it works really well most of the times, and you can it's easy to download models and stuff, and then you can try. The challenge with that is that there's no a defined way how you can actually have a benchmark because it will depend on your hardware and where you're running that against the same hardware, right? So, and
Sure.
that is why it becomes like complicated to see, oh, what is the best out of all of them, right? Or the
Yeah, I
best
think
way to
you
go.
just said you're right. You have to benchmark against the hardware you have, and so yeah, the benchmark's only as good as the hardware you're running on. But for folks who might be invested in, say, Apple Silicon, you can kind of say, hey, here's what your experience might be, and then if you run it again on some other hardware, the same sort of setup, you can kind of compare and contrast that way.
Great. I
A
had
couple things to
one
just
quick
share, guys.
question,
Yeah,
if you don't mind. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Would you mind if I ask one quick question? Yeah, before you wrap up.
Yeah.
So I was just going to ask, in terms of using local files and then routing it to public models, what's everyone's favorite sort of anonymizer or tool to kind of make sure they're not sending private data into models? Like, say if they've got NDAs or whatever on documents.
You have to pick model providers that are protect your privacy. Otherwise, you have no control. So you usually have to pay like for an enterprise level license, regardless of what you're using, like Open Router or GitHub Copilot base is they do train on your data, but GitHub Copilot business does not. So you kind of have to go look at the licensing to get that protection. I don't think you can anonymize it enough because if it can't understand it, then how is it going to help you, right? So I think it's more so you have a agreement that they're not going to train on your data.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, even the nature of can generate a weight profile, and um, uh, the CEO of Palantir was saying on CNBC the other day, was that the profiling of um, of the exchanges is a space where information and business modeling can be gleaned. So there's some really big questions around that for sure.
Yeah, I can't use Fable for enterprise right now because it monitors everything, goes to third party. They're looking for things, right?
Yeah. It certainly
Definitely
brings
use
sovereign.
OpenAI,
Basically,
Go ahead. Hello.
I have a doubt. Like, basically, I'm uh, hosting. I mean, I am using my local LLM model. Like, I am using VLLM as a model influencer and Light LLM for Open API compatible tool, and I created a continuum for integrating both the LLM and the agent work. And currently, I'm using a 24 GB Maxwell 4000 Pro and running GLM 4.7 Flash. But it's good enough for a single person to do some basic works, but it's not good that like Cloud or anything because it's a 30 billion MOE model, 3 billion is active, so it has some disadvantage. So any other model you have in like local LM model, if you have like better than the GLM 4.7?
Anyone that's a 30B model, how many tokens per second are you getting out of it, Anurag?
Mostly it's infinite. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure actually. I didn't calculate that. It's
But
super fast. Like it's I getting the token like normal cloud.
good. Okay.
And I have I think a 96K context window.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not calculate the token count for per second. I'm not sure about that actually.
Yeah. Well, 4.7 was certainly the last one that I heard of in a 30B model that was usable for development to a degree, but you got to have a really good harness around that so that you've got the, especially if you've only got 86,000 token context window. Guy, do you have any ideas around what might be the best local models running right now?
So there's three that I look at. Gemma 4 QAT is a really good model because it performs as well as the dense model, and but they did it by doing the training being quantization aware. So the 4-bit model actually performs as well as the 8-bit dense model, and it's smaller, and so that's a really good like reasoning model to use. From coding, I would say Qwen 3.6, either the MOE model or the dense model quantized is good. The one that I haven't tried yet that seems to be beating its numbers called Orinth 1.0. And that's an interesting one to look at. And then there's a lot of hacks to running them, like being sure you're using multi-token prediction or using speculative decoding with dflash. So depending on your particular hardware, the runner and the configuration makes a big difference in your token rate and your memory usage. So those are the things I would look at. Those seem to be the best models right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we could do a dedicated session just on local models.
There's also the BitNet from Microsoft and the Pi models that are very decent.
Yeah, so there's a company, I think Primordial, that does a 1-bit model that performs as well as the 7 billion parameter models using that technology. So if you want to get something that's under a gigabyte, there's a few options, but they're not quite as smart as you might hope they would be. And that's where maybe a specialized model, taking one of those really little models and specializing it so it does one thing really well, might be more optimal.
Neat. A couple of things I just wanted to share from the community. One, Volt Kids. That is, and I'll share the link to the original slide presentation and sign up form for any of you that are interested. Volt Kids emerged out of Reuven's Tribe channel, and it is a platform for exploring projects around firmware and the physical AI
Around
side
hardware.
and all that kind of things. Around which?
Hardware. I think you said
Yeah,
firmware.
hardware. Right, firmware, yes. And hardware. Those are the two links there. So there's a sign up form if you want to dive in. You can see the actual presentation. It's voltskid.com, right? That's the domain over. Voltkid.com. A pretty neat idea around a platform for collaborative work on projects that is also collective learning. So as you go through the experimentation of actually of project by project, there's collective input and then an amassing knowledge library of what the experience looked like. So pretty interesting and fun approach. So you got those two things. I do want to mention that July 23rd is the Silicon Valley meetup. And so that's on Thursday of this month. It's being hosted by Plug and Play Tech. So let me just come up here. That's the Plug and Play Tech Center. And this is a big one. Ruth's flying in for it. A few folks are flying in
July
for it.
3rd or July what?
July 23rd.
23rd, okay.
Yeah, July 23rd. And then here's the Luma event. So I think the whole Cognitum crew is going to be there. Ruth's flying down, Chris is driving in, and then there's a number of members that are going to do presentations as well. Folks who've signed up to help bring the event off, just all around. And then, so if you're in the region, that's going to be an interesting one. Rue's going to be making some kind of tech reveal at the event. So, and I mean, he drops such interesting stuff every single week that something that is pent up for several weeks or a month in advance and then released, at this meetup in Silicon Valley should be pretty interesting.
It'll be obsolete in a month.
Could be. Sorry. When my agents finish a task, I have them read it off and it overrides and comes into my audio stream. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, it's true. It's true. You never know. 6 weeks later, Lord knows what's happening in the world, guy?
Robert, you made your agents talk to you all the time?
No, only on the completion of a task. So when they accuse me as to sort of what's going on and who got to where, so if I've got to jump in on anything, just the very final messaging to any task completion, I have them, and only by the orchestrator, not by sub-agents. It sort of keeps me in the, mind you, it's going, I got to turn it down at night because 3 o'clock in the morning, it's dropping messages. Yeah. Let me see here. I have to sign off. I can pass it on here to Ofer. Shall I throw you in as host here?
Okay.
For anybody else who wants to continue to jam. Let me see. Where are you? There you are. Right coast. Good to see you guys yet again. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we've got lightning talks. Stuart's going to be showing us his stuff as well. And then, and we will see you there and talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Just want to promote what Rob was just mentioning and maybe showing just the mock-up we have so far. We're looking for people who want to be part of this. And this is a mock-up website, walkie.com, where you can see what it is about. This is for people to find hardware and kits and figure out how they're gonna build their own, give them different kind of views of what they need to get, how they put it all together, how does it work, combining hardware, AI, also firmware. So we think it's an exciting project with a lot of opportunities, and that's the form that is in where Rob shared the link before, and we'd love to, see you there and be part of this. So that's this project that I'm excited about. And let me know if you have any questions that maybe I can't even answer.
It looks awesome. Good job. I like it a lot.
This is all so far. This is Didrik's work. We have three teams, as you're going to see in the form, because there's interesting problems to solve, right? Like, how do we work in a worldwide team? Each one has the superpowers of AI and not stepping on each other and building it correctly. So great people already in there, and I hope to see you there as well.
Awesome.
Anyone else want to share something, discuss any specific topic?
The only thing, if nobody else wanna actually share anything else, I wouldn't mind if you guys actually provide me a feedback on the actual site.
Is it the
For
one
the
you shared before?
You want me to share my screen or?
No, I'm asking, is that the same? Oh, yeah, you shared it again. It's the same one as before.
Yeah, it's the same one. So
Yeah, I
that is
didn't,
something
I saw
I
it
would
for
like if you
five
guys like
seconds.
able to take some time and take a look at it and provide some feedback with.
I see, Alejandro, on the website itself, when I go to get involved and I click on join us on GitHub, it tells me this, 404. So I don't know if it's a private project or the link is um, updated.
Thank you. It's just changed to public now.
Okay.
Yeah, that is why feedback is so important. You can always miss the small things. Honestly, there's nothing on the site but the website and the mission, essentially.
Yeah, I would just like, my 2 cents would be, I think adding imagery would be great. Um, Involving, don't know how much of that you want to put effort in, but getting either like the design skill or Google Stitch or one of these things to break out of the look that, I don't know if Cloud Code or one of these tools built it, I think that would be helpful and more welcoming for people.
Thank you.
And I love the project for sure.
One of the questions regarding like logistics, because this is like an ongoing problem and an issue. Do you guys think it should run like for a month or 2 months? Also to give more opportunity to more people to participate and create more tools, because some of these tools are complex too. So I'm thinking also there's the need that they need this help like as soon as possible, right? So I'm thinking maybe just making a way like somebody comes to an idea, it gets developed, and then looking into deploy like as soon as possible, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be used also, or I'm guessing it can be, right? People might come to this one and develop something that, like, unfortunately, there's going to be future earthquakes and disasters like that, and perhaps some of these projects would be able to utilize in the future. How do you get audience and people to know about it?
I have a very rich community of developers, and that's mostly the people involving so far. I'm planning to do a whole social media outreach campaign essentially in order to share essentially the initiative, right? So and see, I haven't even thought about like even sponsors or anything like that, but I think maybe something maybe worth in incorporating because like some of these ideas might actually require like actually some type of hardware or or hosting this thing somewhere, right? So thinking maybe that might be a way something important to incorporate as well, right?
Yeah. Um, yeah, sponsor sounds good, and maybe even let people know they can win something, with great ideas. If and that's a sponsor could allow you to do that. I'm also thinking of if it's a hackathon, it would be really nice to know. Right now, the static is the site is static. Okay, it is about the project. If I could see some GitHub users of people who already said they will participate, if there's any way to make it a little more dynamic like that, so I know I'm not working in a void, but maybe there's people who already started something or looking for collaboration. That would be nice.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Thank you. I'm gonna work on that. Yeah, yeah, because it provides that snowball effect, right? Is anyone else who would like to share something we're working on right now, or offer? Are you working on this on the site you shared earlier today, the Bolt kit?
Yeah, I mean, I signed up the form. I'm part of the teams that are building it. So yeah, I'm working on it and the guidance of what we're going to build. There's so many features in it, so there's going to be a lot of work needed. We need great people to be part of it. And as you will see if you watch the video that Rob shared, there's going to be also revenue streams coming out of it and potentially where we want to take it. And there's a lot more that can be done with it. Right now it's a mock-up, but I don't think there's something so similar to what we're building here. And I think the time is perfect for combining hardware and AI.
I like it. It seems very like kids oriented, right? And that's what you kind of want to involve with this project, essentially.
Also, although yeah, it was one of my comments of we might not have a, immediately you go there like this is only for kids, but it should be for anybody. It should be available for kids, but also us as kids, right? Like when we want to tinker with things, experiment, see what works, what doesn't.
Who is in-house concept?
And I also believe it's a service that Didrik built.
The what? Sorry.
Didrik, the guy that built this one,
Oh, it's his company,
that's his
I guess.
company. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is it operational now or not yet?
The site?
Yeah.
It's a mock-up, so some things are
Okay.
there. No guarantee for anything. So this is just to
Yeah.
show proof of concept of what it might look like.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to close the call. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you on the call tomorrow. Have a good one.
Take care, guys. See ya.
Bye.